over there to see it says they can see you.
Why does it say that? I'm gonna turn this down.
Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. I hope everybody is doing well tonight.
Hi, you guys. I hope you're doing good. Hi, David. Hi, Scratch. Scratch, I love that name. Did that come off of Ice Age?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the kids' shows so much,
Okay. Yeah, it's a cartoon. Scratch is the one who causes all of the catastrophes, the major disasters when he's trying to hide his nut.
Oh, I remember that. So he's that little guy that's always trying to hide the acorn.
Yeah, he's trying to hide the acorn and he causes like world disasters. So now we know the backstory. There's our history, you guys. It's no longer a secret. Just watch that show.
So good to see you guys. Hello, Brother David. Hello, Scratch. Hello, Outlaw Bob Barker. Hello, Russell. Good to see you as well. And I'm sure we'll have more and more joining us. As this was on, I think I gave like 12 minutes notice. I knew I wanted to go tonight. Maybe I'm staying so much on the same sort of track, but it's because, when you start doing research on one particular area and you just get deeper in it, then you discover something and you're like, oh, I just did this video, right? And then this is so cool. Oh my God, check this out, and then it's like, well, don't want to do another video on almost the same thing. Let's just do a live and talk about things. It's great to have the interaction of the lives. Jeff Adams, hi, how you doing? Lisa, good to see you. ID Loves Life. Hey, Linda. Good to see you as well, Brenda.
Yeah, it's good to see you guys. You guys have been so wonderful. And we did a video not too long ago on the trailer, and you guys are so supportive. Oh my gosh, I can't thank you enough because I'm really super shy if you couldn't tell in the video. But you guys are really, really making me feel at home and cradle right into everything very nicely. Thank you.
Yes, and we're just taking it really slow with the trailer. Like we just basically went out there and, got the blankets, the bed organized, sheets. We're just going to piecemeal it, doing a couple of things a day, see what we could fit. I know we can't fit too much, but, we're going to have to put the rest of it in the bed of the truck, and I still have to get a cover for the bed of the truck or a cap. A cap would be ideal. And, guys, thank you so much for the love that you showed out and for making Cindy feel so at home. And she is exceptional. She really is. She's such a wonderful person. I mean, I knew I loved her as a person as soon as we connected. It's just like, this is a great person. And it's just clicked ever since we met in person. It's been nice.
It's been wonderful. We've been inseparable. Yeah, I mean, I go over to clean and I'm gone away from you for like 30 minutes and my energy starts getting squirrely. So if I'm not done cleaning the B&B, then I have to come give you a hug and I'll go back to clean. It's like that.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, we're going to be one of those old couples, I think, hopefully if we're blessed to live long enough that people look at and say, oh, look, they still look really in love.
We will, and we're going to look younger for it because I believe that love, and it's what you guys send out to me and I send out back. I think love is a frequency and technology. I think there's a lot more to the love frequency than we're being told. It's not just an emotion or just a feeling. It can heal us.
Cindy, when did you start following the channel? Because she started following the channel. How many people did I have about?
You were, I think it was like 13,000.
About 13,000 subscribers. Now, the channel's been stuck at 63,000 because of the censorship issue. And it just, stays right there. They won't let the needle move at all. But hopefully that'll go by in time. I think there's a lot of things happening out there right now that might end up changing that. So Cindy saw the channel and then she wanted me to do distance energy work with her. And then after I did energy work with her, she wanted to learn how to do it. So we worked together since, and I also worked on one of her daughters as well as her mother, distance-wise. And, we just basically have been friends. And then we met in person not too long ago, maybe like 8-9 months ago. And it just was immediate. So you just, sometimes you just know, and honestly, it felt like it was ordained from above, because I think we're supposed to work together. I know we're supposed to work together. There's just no doubt.
Aw. Hi, Angela. Hi, sweetheart. Hi, Outlaw Bob, Rizar, Brenda. You guys are just so wonderful, and you're so sweet, and you're making me feel so at home. And I really can't thank you enough. And, the relationship is just something that I've never experienced a love and a kindness like this before. And it's wonderfully overwhelming. I couldn't ever ask for more.
It's mutual. So, if you guys saw what we covered today as far as videos, in one video we were talking about apparently a fleet of probably some sort of what was top secret craft over in Tonopah, which is not far from here, and we've gone by that area numerous times. I know Cindy's gone by it a million times. And then the other thing was, it took into effect that new earthquake alert, then the St. Lawrence Rift, and then, going deeper into that, because I knew about that, but I just wanted to go deeper into that, how that was connected to perhaps the Carolina Bays, which are connected to the Younger Dryas. And then when you start looking at that extinction, it's, well thought that it probably was asteroids or comets coming on down. And when I started to I just swear that me and Cindy both have the same impression when we go through the desert. I feel there was a huge war here. And then it got me thinking about, it looks the same as the photos we're seeing from Mars. And then we look at the Sumerian, text on it, and realize, Mars was basically used by the Anunnaki as well. And the Igigi or Igigi, depending on how you pronounce them, were there. And they're the ones that said, hell no, we're not going to be slaves for you anymore. And that's when the tinkering happened with maybe Homo erectus, according to some thoughts. I don't know if I'm not totally sold. I think that there are beings called the Anunnaki, and again, that just means those from who the heavens came. And that could be more than one type of being. I mean, that could be Greys, it could be reptilians, it could be Draco, it could be perhaps some type of Nords as well, or Pleiadians, or other beings as well. It could be, it's just all those who from the heavens came down to Earth. And so, again, to me, it's pretty obvious that there were beings here physically that were not from here originally, perhaps, but they still may have been here before we were here, at least some of them. And then I do think there is an interdimensional component as well.
Absolutely, with all the energy and the manipulation of energy that they know how to do. And even some of us, or I mean all of us, I'm sure, that are on the channel have some sort of thing that we can't really explain. And I think that has to do with the different alien race that we might be tied into, because I'm sure that our whoever made us, they have certain abilities that are stronger than another race's abilities. And to me, that's how the chakras and everything makes sense. And that makes sense of how everyone has different abilities, because it's we're all like a little pebble of a different race.
Yeah, I agree. It's just interesting. And then, of course, I still do get, a lot of people that will make comments and say, well, they're all demons, or they're the Nephilim, the fallen angels and stuff. And, I started studying this when I was about 11 or 12, and I'm going to be 55 next year. So, I'm deep into it. I understand the whole line of thinking. So I had one comment where it's like, yeah, but you have to be blessed by the Holy Spirit to be able to have the wisdom to understand. And, I understand where they're coming from, but they're only looking at one point of view instead of looking at all these points of view. So it's just, it's just tunnel vision to me. Doesn't mean that I don't think there's truth in all these different stories. I think there is truth hidden away in all the different traditions. And I see Kimmy's in the house. Good to see you, Kimmy. Stephanie, good to see you. Rizar, Julie. No thanks. Good to see you too. Hope you're staying warm up in Maine. It's going to be like 24 tonight here. And that's got me ready to start driving tomorrow to Miami. It's like I just detest the cold. I really do hate the cold. While I do love the beauty of, the first snowfall around a beautiful place like Shasta, the other side of me just can't stand the cold and would rather be somewhere tropical.
And when we do our mantras, the gods are coming in and they're saying that they do agree with our decisions and they're very happy with us. They're just saying, hold on, just a little longer. It's going to be worth it. I know it's going to be worth it. Just a little longer in the cold and I'll keep you warm, babe.
Good to see you, brother Chris, as well. And Daisy, hello over in New Mexico. And Bima. So like I did a video on the Ascended Masters over on the second channel. Because like over there you don't really get attacked like you might on the main channel, because there's a lot of people that follow the main channel mostly just for earth changes and things, but are very, very tunnel sighted as far as their belief structure. But again, I think there's benevolent beings that come in from all different places, all different densities too. I mean, obviously, perhaps not the lower astral realm, as we know that's the area where there's a lot of the nastier stuff. My Skies 5D, cheers from Portland. Good to see you as well. English fellow, good to see you over in the UK. And, it's just fascinating to look at it. So, powerful evidence of nuclear wars in ancient times. And, there's some really interesting things. I think a lot of the people, perhaps, that were in on these top secret, things like building the nuclear bomb, right? The Manhattan Project. So how much did they know? How much did the scientists really know? And how about Oppenheimer's? If you guys never saw this, Oppenheimer, and, who was the one that, spearheaded the Manhattan Project? It was directed by theoretical physicist Robert Oppenheimer, right? It was all about getting the first nuclear bomb. Well, nuclear bomb in modern times, right? When he was questioned whether, like Trinity, that's one of the first explosions. That was the first explosion that left a crater 300 feet wide, 5 feet deep. Inside was green, glassy material, indicating temperatures of over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1,700 Celsius, the minimum needed to melt sand into glass. So this radioactive glass was named trinitite and was considered a unique material found nowhere else on Earth. Yeah. But later, when questioned whether the Trinity explosion was the first ever detonation of an atomic device, the inscrutable Oppenheimer replied, yes, in modern times. Since then, much has been made of this statement. And prior to modern times, did Oppenheimer suspect there had been prehistoric nuclear war? So, I mean, that's a big statement because, somebody like that is going to be very careful about what they state. And these guys are just so meticulous, that, he wouldn't make a statement like that if he didn't have something in mind. Don't you agree?
Completely. He knows things. And a lot of these guys in higher places, they've seen documents, they've been shown things. And I would imagine a lot of them are also blackmailed to some extent to be very careful with their words. So maybe they want to tell things, but they can't, or something happens to their family. So they have to make it like an open-ended statement.
Yes. And just curious, guys, did you all get notifications? I'm just wondering if you guys get notifications. Because you know how things go, obviously. So yeah, there's a lot of evidence. I think there's so many puzzle pieces coming together, and history repeats itself, and perhaps ancient history is repeating itself again, right? So it's pretty fascinating to see that. Now, Oppenheimer also was enthralled by the Bhagavad Gita, which is the great Indian war epic written around the 2nd century BCE. According to Western sources, it could be actually quite a bit older than that, as they always seem to tend to want to date things out of the Judeo-Christian tradition earlier, and they've tried to downplay this. And the more I've gone into this, the more I feel that all the Indian writings, the Vedic writings, the Puranas, the Upanishads, I think that they are older than we think, especially the Vedas, because I've seen some of the Indian scholars think that these things are 10,000 years old. And so, I think there's definitely an agenda underway to downplay it. But when you look at what it says, it really does kind of back up a lot of the Sumerian writings, and it really goes into a lot on the wars that happened on this planet between these beings that had high tech. It doesn't, when we talk about gods and titans and all that, they're not prime creator, they're not source, they're beings, they're all beings. And so any being with a name is not, source, in my opinion. It's just something I feel. I think it's something that's unnameable. It's, something that's just beyond, as I was saying, and I had talked about how we're just so used to saying our Father who art in heaven, not, our mother, or because of, the imbalance that we've had in this society, but even going beyond that and recognizing, it's just not what we've been told. It's not a guy with a white beard up in the cloud. Now, that guy might be in a ship watching us, but it's not the source of all life. It's not the creator of everything. Could be the terraforming person in charge of planet Earth. As Earth, when you think about, okay, look at Earth, the name Earth, the first two letters are Ea, and Ea is, the being that became Lord of the Earth, and Ki, so it's an interesting but yet twisted thing. I mean, I do think there is one source from which everything emanates, and we know that, there's this quantum entanglement that is there because at one time everything was basically connected and together in a much smaller package. At least that's the thinking. And that quantum entanglement is still here. And so it's something that pulls us all together. And Rizar says, I believe we are a drop in an ocean. Yeah, each one of us might be just one drop in a vast ocean of consciousness. So as we start to realize more and more, and especially if you guys are going in deep, you're doing your meditation and things like that on a daily basis, which we strive to do. Now today I got, I think, 4 videos done, and we're doing the live, and I have another video in mind after this. I was just feeling kind of more inspired today. But we still got our mantras and meditation in, and we do it on a regular basis. Then you really do connect to the higher realms. And as Cindy's alluding to, we know we're having interactions with beings from the higher realms. And you could test the spirits. It's that simple. I mean, when something's negative and quote unquote dark or demonic, as opposed to something that is emanating a sense of love and peace and kindness and gentleness.
Well, the energies, as far as I know, they don't lie. Like my body, I have physical effects, and if it is a negative reptilian / Draco in nature, my body reacts in that way, where I get like this really low lull of an energy, almost like a body ache, and I'm just sad and suppressed. I feel the suppression, whereas the other ones, my heart uplifts, I feel lighter. So in that sense, I if I do feel the ether. I don't see how they could lie.
Yeah, exactly. Angela B says, I want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the first things when we head back for our Florida visit. Going to take Cindy to some kirtans. And as I've said to you guys, kirtans are amazing. The ones that I've gone to, because it's people of all different faiths coming together. And, there's just absolute respect between it. And the love that emanates there is completely life-changing. It's just life-changing. It's so beautiful and non-judgmental. And it's just an incredible thing. And I come away it's better than being stoned. Again, if I knew what that was like. So, I'm just saying that you come away buzzing on such a high, and just a feeling of so much love going through your heart. It's just amazing. So when we look at this, obviously Oppenheimer knew something, and as we're saying here, he had studied the Gita and, the Mahabharata, and he was actually somebody that would quote passages from it. And so while much is made of the Bhagavad Gita as a mythic spiritual saga, Oppenheimer, as a student and professor of theoretical physics and thermodynamics, was likely captivated by the explosive burning weapons and devices described in detail so precisely that modern researchers have been able to reverse engineer, quote unquote, these technologies. So what were the magical weapons of the Mahabharata? Were they nuclear bombs or something along those lines? So one section of the Bhagavad Gita, called the Book of Drona, describes magical, quote unquote, weapons called astra that could destroy entire armies, causing crowds of warriors with steeds and elephants and weapons to be carried away as if they were dry leaves of trees. That's pretty ominous. Another weapon was described as producing vertical, billowing smoke clouds that opened consecutively like giant umbrellas, reminiscent of the massive rising mushroom clouds produced by the Trinity test, as well as others. And among the most destructive of the astra was the Brahmastra, created by the god Brahma, a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. That's interesting, isn't it? It was an unknown weapon, an iron thunderbolt, a gigantic messenger of death which reduced to ashes an entire race. There was neither a counterattack nor a defense that could stop it. The weapon produced an incandescent column of smoke and flame as bright as 10,000 suns that rose in all its splendor. After corpses were so burned as to be unrecognizable, their hair and nails fell out, pottery broke without any apparent cause, and birds turned white. After a few hours, all foodstuffs were infected. That sounds awful familiar, guys. Any target hit by the Brahmastra would be utterly destroyed, land would become barren and lifeless, rainfall would cease, and infertility in humans and animals would follow for eons of time. The Brahmastra was detonated at the end of the final 18-day battle of Kurukshetra. The Pandavas vanquished their enemy, the Kauravas, with devastating weapon, but a few surviving Pandavas discovered there was nothing left to occupy and no one left to rule. It was all wiped out. The Brahmastra had destroyed the entire Kaurava society and turned the region, present-day Rajasthan, to desert. And we could see if we could get a look at where that is in northern India, close to the border of Pakistan. So, I mean, that's pretty amazing to read that. I mean, it sure does sound like a nuclear war, doesn't it? The war also marked in the Vedic system the beginning of the current Kali Yuga age. So, going in with a bang. Let's hope we don't go out with a bang.
Yeah, and you say those words so good. I could never read like that. So we'll give you a break about the Spokane thing. You're off the hook. As you read that, that's just a little irritating that they teach us here that we are the pinnacle of modern technology right now. And how could we be when they're describing these things in these ancient books? It's like, again, they're treating us like complete idiots, like we don't know any better, or we wouldn't, or we wouldn't believe our lion eyes, or we wouldn't use our intuition. And that's just how they treat us. And it's like over and over and over, consistency, and acting like, no, nothing to see here, nothing happened here, go back to sleep, go back to sleep, go back to sleep. And it just sort of bothers me to know that this knowledge is out there and it's not being taught mainstream.
Yeah, and Julie made a great observation saying, I wonder if this is the reason why there are a lot of deformed people born in India. And, there's people that have kind of like an elephantitis, all sorts of deformities that, yeah, you're right. You don't necessarily see them. I actually, elsewhere, I've seen many more people that have had that happen there. But, there's also signs over in the Sinai Peninsula as well, and in other places around the world as well. So, it's very sad, but man, okay, so that started the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga. These wars started the Dark Age. So my question to you is, does that mean that the bad guys won?
I don't know. Somebody wrote the books for us to follow and believe, and they scared the pants out of us, in some of these books by saying, if you don't believe exactly this, you're going to go to hell and you're going to just have to be in pain and burn forever if you dare look outside these pages. It wasn't very nice.
So, the Dark Age also, in a sense that, well, when you look at it, light is gnosis, right? And then dark is basically a lack of knowledge, lack of understanding, lack of insight, and slave mentality. And I think that you could see in the, out of some of the traditions that we have found dominating this world, a slave mentality. It is, bow down. You are born a sinner, original sin, so it's kind of like the line of thought you would give a group of people that you have conquered, and you want to keep them in place. You don't want them waking up. You don't want them understanding what exactly happened. You want to keep them in a place of servitude. Keep them down, keep their ego down, make them think that they're worthless, unless, if it wasn't for the higher powers, there'd be no hope for them. And you see, this has dominated this world, it's dominated this world. So, did the bad guys win is basically my question. The ones running the show now, the ones that have been running the show, they don't give a crap about the earth. And they obviously don't give a crap about us. Perhaps we are just simply a commodity to them. And so, where did the good guys go to, that were trying to fight them off? So, it's kind of hit me that basically this whole tradition, which originates in Sumeria, it originates probably given to us from a little bit more negative forces of, if we call them the Anunnaki, those from who the heavens came, and again, let's look at the words, because, if we look at what Satan is, Satan means the adversary, it means the adversary. If we look at angel, angel means messenger. It's not really, if we look at, the origins of the word, an angel is a messenger, somebody being sent to give a message. So, things have gotten so twisted and confused, but it's been done on purpose. But we're able to now look at all the traditions of the world. We're able to look at all the great traditions and all the smaller traditions. And as we know, a lot of the indigenous people of the world have been snuffed out, or, they have been really put down to such a high degree. And so many of them have, leftover knowledge of these things and of these beings.
I do look at the natives, and a lot of them were not just snuffed out, physically, but they went into the ether and kind of screwed up their world through ritual abuse, and that gets stuck in the DNA, and from the DNA is born a child. And I don't, I didn't know this before, but my children have my trauma, my DNA that I have from past traumas. So as they get older, these things unravel and they do the same thing I did, even if they weren't aware of what happened to me. The likelihood of it happening to them, unless there's some form of healing, is quite great. And hence you have the cycle of abuse. And it's over and over and over. And at some point we have to take a stand and stop it. But how can we stop something that we don't understand and we don't have that much education on? It's difficult.
Yeah, most definitely. And so, Rizar said an adversary could be the ones on the good side fighting the bad side. And this is where we get into what I think is going to play out, which I think a lot of you guys think is going to play out too, which is that like fake alien invasion thing. And then maybe there is really going to be some coming. So if the bad guys are in control now, right, they're going to make you think the good guys are bad guys, and perhaps the other bad guys, they're going to make them look like good guys. It's just that inside out thing. Many people caught on and said, Lucifer means light bringer, and light is knowledge and gnosis, and have said, no, Lucifer isn't the devil. Lucifer isn't Satan. There's all this confusion in there. And so, I know I've had many, many people that are kind of more fundamentalist Christian. And, I was in that group sort of when I was in my 19, 20, in that age group. And even at that, I didn't really buy it. I just went through it because my best friend was into it. And so he dragged me. And so I went to it, and I went to the Bible studies and everything. And then I went deeper, and then, I found inconsistencies and stuff, and then nobody had answers for. And then I went deeper and deeper, and then branched off and went down other lines and started to get a much clearer picture. So I understand the fundamentalist point of view. It's very simple to understand. I just don't believe it. I just can't believe it. Again, it's like I equated it to going into my mom's closet and I found my Christmas presents. So thus, you cannot believe in Santa Claus anymore. When you get to that point, you just know. Now you can believe in the spirit of Santa Claus, and that's a different thing altogether. But you can't believe in the story that you were told. So, that's just what I'm getting at here. Now, when we get into these things, there's a lot more here. This is not, there's real details here, and it's pretty interesting. And now in these times, we could understand this pretty clear. So declassified eyewitness accounts of the Trinity nuclear tests echo the ancient descriptions of the Brahmastra. L.W. Alvarez was sitting between the pilot and the co-pilot of the B-29, flying roughly 25 miles from the blast site. He said, intense light covered my field of vision, after which I noted an orange-red glow. The cloud started to push up, appearing as a parachute being blown up by a large electric fan. 10 miles from the blast, witness Enrico Fermi reported, I had the impression that suddenly the countryside became brighter than full daylight. Technician Kenneth Greason, also 10 miles from the site, saw a brilliant yellow-white light all around. Tremendous cloud of smoke was pouring upwards, some parts having brilliant red and yellow colors like clouds at sunset. So, these are the reports. They sound exactly like what is described in these texts. And the Puranas, there's just so much detail in here as well. And the fact that they talk about over 100,000 humanoid races in our galaxy. How did they know that? This is why this stuff is put down, because it's got an awful lot of, it has a lot of the connected dots already connected for us. And now we could really see and understand what they were talking about. And this was definitely a battle, maybe not a battle for planet Earth, but maybe planet Earth is just simply one little tiny piece of real estate out in the boonies that these powers, were fighting over.
Yeah, it's like they're planet destroyers. They come in and they scar everything, because this desert, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like it's natural. The lay of the land, the the way things are striped, it just looks like spoils of, I don't know if one thing that came across my mind is maybe it was the spoils of inner earth. When they were digging out the earth, they just threw the dirt on top of there. But the thing is in the desert, like the ground is not fertile to grow trees and stuff. So that tells me something happened to the fertility. And what screws up fertility besides, nuclear stuff?
Well, our fertility rates are dropping through the roof right now, as we had talked about. And let me just show over here at Patreon. Anybody that's interested in supporting the channel, please do join Patreon, because there's some videos that will definitely not are not YouTube friendly. So we have some videos over there that you won't get to see on YouTube just because of the topics, and there are things that would kind of probably take the channel down permanently. And we do appreciate your support as well on Ko-Fi. Without you guys, we couldn't keep going and doing this. So, this is it's just amazing. New Mexico, for instance, there's been an awful lot of tests in New Mexico and in Nevada, all throughout the desert areas. And, you have people that suffered the consequences. And, as you see here, my outer skin gradually fell off the next few days. Few years later, I began to have skin problems, and I've had treatments ever since. And this is one of the guys that we were talking about, Daryl Gilmore, over by the Trinity site. He also survived prostate and other cancers. New Mexico is known for a high number of cancer deaths. In fact, cancer is the state-leading cause of death. And, you got to wonder what type of beings would even think about making something like this. You just have to wonder. It's incredible. And then the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 340,000 to 460,000 deaths directly or indirectly caused. I don't know. I just can't understand beings that would do this to other beings. And in the case of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I understand what they were saying. They were saying, well, if we had to go in and invade, it would cost many more lives. But I mean, these are babies. These are, the elderly, little kids. It's, to me, just absolutely disgusting to think about.
It is. And, it just reminds you that this is what we're up against. This is what we're dealing with. And I think it should be brought to light. And that's why I like the channel, because you do take these things and you put them in front of us and you let us know what's going on, because what they paint such a cozy picture on mainstream news, mainstream media. This is rarely covered the way you're doing it.
Thank you, my dear. And there again, I mean, I know many people believe that there are white hats right now fighting the black hats, but again, if you look at somebody and you could see where they're operating from in their energy, and recognize somebody that's just full of ego and bravado, and then you check things and you see where they're increasing the spending, and it's all about death and destruction. They're not benevolent beings. They're not a high level of being. They're not a very evolved being. I'm just saying that in general, not naming names. But as we know, we have not had very, very enlightened leadership on this planet for quite a while, especially in this country, as well as some others like China, and obviously with the dictator for life and their social credit score system. So again, the glass is a byproduct. We see that in multiple areas as well. Check out that there. So you have this desert glass scarab attributed to Tutankhamun's burial collection. And so this is perhaps left over because of a nuclear blast again. Physical evidence of ancient nuclear wars, desert glass. And, we find it in different areas. And it came to me when I was going through the Ramayana again and the Mahabharata. It really came to me the feeling that the beings that were over in the Indus Valley area were definitely fighting against the beings that were in Africa and in the Middle East, in particular in Sumeria. So I feel like I think it was kind of a battle between these different beings. And interesting, there was a link that basically said the Battle of the Devas against the Anunnaki, and I couldn't get it to open. Interesting, though, too, I've had an awful lot of links that won't open on Google anymore, but I could get them up on other browsers. So pretty interesting stuff there.
It is, and it's like poisoning of the information. When we do get information, we have so much information, we're just not sure exactly what to believe, why to believe it. And I guess that's why I do like the Vedic. It does go back eons and eons and eons, but it can still be messed with, but I don't think it's been messed with as much as stuff that comes out of the Western system.
Yep. So this glass has also been found under Neolithic, Sumerian, and Babylonian layers at archaeological sites in Iraq. There's no coincidence in the fact that certain areas have been under, constant war and military control, and Iraq is one of them. This is ground zero for the Anunnaki, and that whole culture and civilization. So there's things there that can't be released to the public, and that's why the area has been in a constant warfare. And Libyan glass as well, called the Rock of God, right? Very interesting. So could it have been created by lightning and meteors? It is exactly what would happen with a nuclear detonation. And the fact is that we see this in many different areas around the globe. Ancient radioactive sites in India and Pakistan. And there again, you could see that there's so many places that still has nuclear residue. And, to me, it's just overwhelming evidence that we've had ancient nuclear war, and also over here in North America. And as you see here, our research indicates that the entire Great Lakes region and beyond was subject to particle bombardment and a catastrophic nuclear irradiation that produced secondary thermal neutrons from cosmic ray interactions. The neutrons produced unusually large quantities of 239 Pu and substantially altered the natural uranium abundant ratios in artifacts and other exposed materials. And so, this is Richard B. Firestone talking about this. And, over here it gets into the fact, it says, since Atlantis was basically America, and, this is this one gentleman, Gene D. Matlock, who wrote a book, and its people were from India. Now, again, there's different lines of thought on this. Not everybody believes that, but when you look into, again, all the old ancient Sanskrit manuscripts, it definitely shows that the culture that was here, perhaps it was residue of the ancient Lemurian culture. We try to tie these pieces together, and I've watched the video, like a year and a half ago that came out, showing that Northwest Africa was Atlantis. I think it was part of Atlantis. I think there's a lot of residue of Atlantis culture in many different locations. And it was, again, a civilization. And just like we were saying, Rome is, a city-state. It was a city-state. But yet the Roman Empire stretched from, the UK all the way down to Egypt and, over to Lebanon and Syria and over to North Africa. So, it was all over the place, in France and Germany. Not all of it was Rome, but it was the Roman Empire. Same thing with Atlantis as well. And so, maybe some of it went underneath in the destruction. Maybe some of it's still on the surface. And maybe, maybe what we see as far as destruction in the desert Southwest and the West is indications of the wars that we're talking about. And then the other video today, I was talking about the Carolina Bays, and where the line of thought is it was like an asteroid came in and split into all these different pieces, or perhaps there was many asteroids that came in. The main chunk went and hit in Greenland, got rid of the ice sheets, and made a big huge flood, wiped out so much life. Maybe it was actually part of these battles too.
Well, yeah, I mean, providing their pictures of Mars are correct, and I believe that they are, and you parallel that with the land that we see in like Monument Valley and Arizona, Nevada, it does look like frighteningly similar.
And so there's parts in one of the ancient texts that talks all about the Vimanas and how they worked. Interesting too that they actually talk about Mercury, and Mercury is again something that the Nazis used with the bell as well. So the technology still here, and perhaps these beings, some of these beings, perhaps they just retreated inside the earth. Maybe there's a truce right now. Maybe there's some sort of truce, and maybe that truce is going to come to an end, and they know that the truce ends in, say, 2024 or 2025. Whatever. I'm just throwing it out there. It might not be that date, but can you imagine if you knew that some sort of truce was on for 5,000 years or whatever, and that truce is going to come to an end, and that right now there is amassing at the edge of our solar system a gigantic armada, ready to come and to rekindle the wars of the gods?
It could very well be. That sounds, I don't know. Everything that we've been told so far isn't true. So I don't see why we could look at these books and these writings and take them literal. It's also curious, and I just love covering this stuff. It brings things into light. It makes sense. And I don't see why, like in school, how come this isn't covered in history? This is so rich and so deep, and I think the reason it's not covered in history is because it's true.
Yeah, they don't want the truth to get out. So, yeah, it's just fascinating to see this. And perhaps this is, even deeper than just this one battle. Maybe this has been going on for a very, very long time. So, if you guys are familiar with Star Wars, there's the Old Republic. And maybe the Old Republic equates to times way long ago, in our history. But yet these battles just, maybe they never stop, It's just interesting. It's very, very interesting to look at all this. War in the heavens. We have references to war in the heavens. Good to see you, Ray Ray. And good to see you, Mr. Mark. It's just fascinating stuff. Fascinating. And then nuclear war on Mars, investigating NASA's Martian cover-up. There's a cover-up going on there as well. And they've been leaking out small bits of disclosure nonstop.
They have, and that's another thing that I like to get to. I like to cover new little pieces of disclosure because it truly, truly feels like it's like a frog in boiling water. Just little nuggets at a time. Nothing to shock, nothing to ooh and ah, but just enough to say, oh yeah, well, that's nice, and yeah, that's nice, but not really, they don't do it quick enough to have you note it in the psyche. That's how I feel anyway.
Yes, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. It's but happening right now, perhaps. Perhaps coming soon to a neighborhood near you. So this is interesting stuff. And how about this? On August 27th, 1911, New York Times Sunday ran this story. Martians built 2 immense canals in just 2 years, based on research done by leading astronomer of the day, Percival Lowell. That's a big statement. And then quickly, let's get rid of that. Just like so many things that get swept under the table, Roswell, right? And Roswell might end up just being a misdirection too. But they came right out. Hey, we got pieces of a flying saucer. Oh, you know what? It was just a weather balloon. Sorry, we screwed up. It's just part of it. It's just part of it. But when you look at Mars and you look at the desert southwest, you know, they look so alike. They really, really look so alike. You know, look at Mars. It's a red planet. Also, why is Mars named Mars? You know, why is it the god of war? Interesting, is it not? I mean, does that not click? What does that tell us in and of itself, that Mars is named Mars after the god of war?
Well, yeah, and Mars is a very fiery planet, a very high energy planet, a warring planet, kind of like a more of a soldier planet who tends to do more as he's told. That's in astrology as far as Mars personality goes. And yeah, you know, it's sad to think what could have happened to Mars.
Yeah, and looking at some of the comments, Bima Bulldog says we're all from Mars. That's why I don't want to go back. And Jules44 says, why are they pushing aliens all the time now? That worries me. Yeah, I mean, there is the thought that we'll have like a staged alien invasion. And, you know, of course, you know, we need to have that Space Force. We talked about Reagan's statements. And I guess Clinton made a statement too about, you know, if there was a threat from outer space, we would all band together, put aside our differences, you know, all that. It is curious. There are a lot of agendas going on, you know, but for me, I'm of the opinion that there's been a lot of different life forms here the whole time. And, you know, just the experiences I've had, I think that they've kind of always been here. I think for the most part now it's done undercover, you know, not so much out in the open. It probably is some sort of agreement, because there was a time when all cultures say the gods walked amongst us.
Yeah, I mean, if you look around to like all the writings, they all have something fantastic about the gods. So it wouldn't be in writing and literally in stone if it wasn't true. Just my humble opinion. I mean, how could it be?
Most definitely, you know. It's just overwhelming, because when we look at it, the stories come in from every corner of the globe, and they all talk about them. You know, that the Cherokee have legends of inner earth people, and they actually have legends too where once they were helped by the inner earth people who happened to look a lot like them, really, slightly bigger, but they actually came out and helped the Cherokee in a battle where they were being attacked by a different tribe. Then also we have both the Cherokee and we have the Hopi, and we have other groups also having legends of reptilian beings that live inside the earth but do come up every now and then when they're hungry for human flesh, you know, and they will snatch some humans. And you got to wonder about, is it missing 411? Mm-hmm. Okay, missing 411. All the people that go missing in national parks and national forests, you know, literally over like 1 million people have gone missing, and we don't know where they are, you know, and most of the time they don't ever recover a body.
No, they don't.
Now, you know, again, a lot of people don't believe in Corey Goode and David Wilcock, and other people do, and Emery Smith. Some do vehemently, and others don't vehemently. But at the same time, they talk about a galactic slave trade, you know, that is going on, in which people are abducted and taken away. And then we look at what Betty Andreasson saw, people inside one of those motherships in kind of suspended animation, you know, in like these like gigantic test tubes almost. And then you've had that vision.
Oh my God, that was terrible. That was horrible. They, I don't know why they had to paralyze me to do that. I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing that they did, but they did. They took me up in this tube thing, and I could see the light and I could see the reprogramming. It's almost like they had to show me. It was really horrible. And then the people in the background at these control panels, I could sense those ones too. It's really hard to explain how I see in my third eye. It's kind of confusing. It's more of a feeling and then an impression, and then I see pictures.
Yeah, you know, so it's interesting, but you know, like Cindy and I have both had experiences with some of these beings. So yeah, we have like firsthand experience, so then it kind of changes your perspective a little when you do, and a lot of you guys do too. A lot of you guys have come out and said that. Most definitely. So when we look at Mars, and let's take a look at some pictures. Do you think that's Arizona, Nevada, or Mars? What do you guys think? And so, how do the aliens get through the firmament? So, again, I think there's a ton of misdirection, a ton of misdirection. And I think one of the biggest tools of misdirection has been our main religious texts, because they're completely jumbled. They're cut and spliced. And, I think that there's definitely been given to us misconceptions abundantly. And, it just takes research to see that. So, this is actually Mars, but, it looks like it could be Earth. And here's another one of Mars, or at least, this is what NASA's telling us. And again, question everything. And there again. And there again. Now, just slightly different filters, and you could probably get this to look exactly like Arizona, New Mexico, or Nevada. Here we go again. And this is a close-up. And, there's been a lot of anomalous objects people have pointed out and said, why does this look like that? It can't happen in nature. How about all these straight lines? It's just thinking that it might be wreckage. And of course, we got the face on Mars, which might be Alalu, one of the new Anunnaki. And so when we see the American Southwest, we see, a lot of interesting topography, and they look very similar. You got to question some of what we're seeing and wondering. Now, others have brought up the fact that it could be, like in electric universe theory, plasma discharge, creating huge uprising and explosions like the Grand Canyon, is probably not created by water erosion. Something bigger probably created that, but what exactly did it? Was it plasma? Was it some sort of plasma weapon, perhaps?
And then I look at these and it feels like the monuments are still there. We can't see them in their complete glory on this dimension because it's so dense, but makes me feel like if we were up a few notches, we would be able to see these magnificent buildings for what they are. At least I think they feel alive to me. They feel vibrant, real, like a ton of energy coming off these things. They're just gorgeous. Even like that, they're gorgeous to me.
Yeah, I think so too. It is beautiful. And like we had said, Sedona has an amazing energy, as does Shasta. Those two places feel magical. And, Siesta Key in Sarasota is like a vortex area, and it's the sand is almost all, it's like 99% quartz crystal. So it's got an incredible vibe over there as well. And, some talk about there being an underwater city off the coast there as well, perhaps an alien base or an Earth base. Hopefully we'll find the truth. I would love to uncover all the truth. So, somebody had asked in there for us to talk about our encounters, and I've done this a few times. And so I'll share with you, and I'll let Cindy occupy you for a second.
Mm-hmm. So, it's just strange how I see them. It's really hard for me to articulate. It's like when I was taken, I could see them. It's like I could see them inside of my head, but I knew that they were there. I don't know. I could close my eyes and see them behind the panels doing something. And then when I see these things, like it's so real, it sends shivers through my body. It's something that you just know that you see. I don't know if it's something you see in your own DNA or how that works.
So when I was 7, I saw a being that was very similar to this on a couple of occasions. Just basically by the side of the bed, and I was like paralyzed, couldn't move. I was paralyzed partially with fright. I wanted to look away. I knew I had to break eye contact and then I'd be okay, which eventually I did, and then started screaming for my parents, and then slept with my parents for about a month, much to their chagrin. But yeah, so I did have that. You know, I didn't really connect all this until really my kids were starting to experience the same thing. And then it really started to click that, you know, I didn't know what I was really seeing, but I've seen one like this as well. Very much just like this. 3 long fingers, about 8 to 9 feet tall, in the bedroom. It did something where it woke me up because energetically I could feel it put something energetically in my lower dantian, about 2 inches below my belly button. And that woke me up. And then it was surprised I woke up and I could see it, and it looked away from me immediately. It broke eye contact, and it seemed like it was starting to meditate. And then slowly it went from being purely physical to kind of just fading away. So this was definitely a being that is interdimensional. And it did through its consciousness. It sped up its molecules. It sped itself's vibratory rate up and then just faded away. But I would estimate I watched it for about a minute and a half before it did take off. And then my kids both have seen the classic grays by their bedside, and they both have had sleep paralysis as well. So, you know, these things are part of, I think, part of my family. It's been a family that's watched, to put it that way. And then again, my father, he never spoke much about it, but he just said he knew aliens were real. He knew UFOs were real. And he wouldn't go into much detail, except for he did say he's seen stuff, and he wouldn't really go in.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we've all been taught that there's something bad and you shouldn't talk about it, shouldn't give them any energy, any power. But I think the way that they have their power and they hold it over us is because we've been taught not to talk about it. You know, anything kept in the dark cannot be seen. And that's why I think it's important to talk about a whole lot of things that they tell us, just hush, hush, just leave it be, just sweep it under the carpet, don't worry about it. You know, it keeps them safe as long as we are whipped into submission through humiliation of some kind.
Exactly. You know, so you know, you still have people that are of the conditioning that everything is simply either, you know, it's a demon. Everything's demons. While I do think there are demonic entities, again, I wouldn't call every life form on planet Earth an ant. You know, I mean, to do that is just, it's pretty silly. You know, there's a lot of different types of life forms out there. It's not all just demons. But yeah, there are demonic entities for sure. So again, that's part of the conditioning that we receive that basically pits us against each other. And so we're arguing over semantics and words, and meanwhile, getting manipulated all the more.
Yeah, and just because something says in the Bible or somebody said, you know, a religious leader says, oh, they're just demons. Listen to your heart. Follow your heart. What do you think? What do you feel? That's what I tend to listen to now is my own energy. And if something goes against my grain and it doesn't resonate very well and it just doesn't make sense, that's when I feel, okay, that's not a nice energy, and I can ask that energy to go away from me. But it's coming from my own heart, my own intuition, my own feeling, not because somebody told me this or that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But, you know, everything is just words, but it's the system too, though, and the indoctrination that really gets us to have blinders on. So, it makes it so you have tunnel vision and you can't see the big picture. And then, of course, often many of these people are usually the ones that are the most vocal as well, just because they've been conditioned so much. And as Judy Kay says, keep your heart and mind open. And that's a beautiful thing, a really beautiful thing. And, unfortunately, there's a lot of people that they just can't get their mind opened in the first place because the societal conditioning is so strong. So I was going to ask Raven to come on. He's busy right now because Raven, is actually very interesting. He's got a lot to share coming from many different sources. And I do want to have him on at some point because he's written like over 20 books, 25, maybe 30 books, and does have a PhD and really knows his stuff when it comes to this stuff that we're talking about. So yeah, as we were saying here, physicist says mushroom cloud found on Mars proves aliens died in ancient nuclear war. It's a barren wasteland now. Now there could be beings still inside the planet. As they're letting out now the knowledge that there's still water under the surface as well. Oh, and there's some scary stuff, guys. I was just thinking about this other video that somebody sent me. Now, it was, I think, something Richie from Boston did a while ago, which was just basically showing a clip of this one scientist talking about what we see, analyzing what we see that's coming down in the air we breathe because of the spider webs in the sky, which I talk about in depth on today's video over on Patreon. This one, as you guys could see, scary stuff. And it actually really kind of hits you like the movie either Aliens or Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Creepy stuff.
It is. And speaking of, not to change it topic too much, but has anyone, because I had this horrible dream about a spider that's like super big and it's like trying to wait for me to be alone. And I don't know if anyone has ever heard of like alien spiders or big spiders or something like that. It wouldn't go away. It was horrible.
So who were the watchers? Angels, demons, or extraterrestrials? Or let's throw in interdimensionals, or let's throw in inner earth, again. It's wonderful that many people have very inquisitive minds and are very open-minded. And it's wonderful that we're blessed with a ton of them in this family, in this channel. Because again, obviously, things have been so twisted and so purposely distorted so that we'll always be basically, not working together, but working against each other. Valerie, I see Valerie is in the group. Good to see you as well. And she says archons. Yeah, there again. So the archons, it's another thing. And why did they persecute Gnosticism so much? Maybe there's a lot of truth in it, because it was totally obliterated. And, everything burned that they could possibly find. And then people labeled as heretics on farther down the line, and then the people were burned and killed as well. So yeah, archons, and again, who are those? They're dark beings from the point of view that they're not benevolent. They tend to be malevolent. Definitely service to self there.
Okay, so Bema Bulldog said I had giant spider dreams. And then I ran into a giant tarantula. The dream warned me. Yeah, we do have tarantulas out here. Just this one sort of just sat in the corner, kept waiting for me to be alone. And then we found a spider web, and we started following the spider web, and there's like more and more spiders. But I don't know. I just wonder if, like, is there like an alien spider or anything like that? I don't know, you guys. It all can be like really creepy out there, but super interesting at the same time of the unknown. Like what we don't know is, oh man, I just can't wait. Like there's going to be a day, and I was talking to Michael about this, like what is going to happen when it's just no longer hideable? Like what if they stop the movie show in the sky and the clouds are the ships, you know, and really we all finally know for sure, and it's no longer being hidden from us. You know, what is that day going to look like, and is it going to happen in our lifetime?
Yeah, I think everything will be out in the open, I would say within 20 years for sure. I think even sooner, really, because I just think that, you know, people are piecing it together. I feel like we're piecing it together right here and right now. So, very interesting. This is an interesting quote. It was pride that changed angels into devils. It's humility that makes men as angels, St. Augustine. And it's interesting, too, because in the Hindu text, too, there's the devas, the good guys, usually, and the asuras, the bad guys, usually. But sometimes there's not so benevolent devas, and sometimes there's pretty benevolent asuras. And, there was another thing in there. Somebody had brought up reptilians from underground they thought they were benevolent. Well, then again, now we have Draco, right? The Dracos are not generally thought to really hardly ever be nice to humans when you get down to it. Doesn't mean there can't be an enlightened Draco, but again, you know, do you want to snuggle up with your crocodile, or would you rather snuggle up with your kitty cat or your dog? Probably not wise to snuggle up with a crocodile or a gator. Now, when we look at what we're seeing in there, we see the Nagas, and the Nagas are a little different. The Nagas, you know, where the Draco are usually depicted, well, pretty much like Satan, you know, if we look at it. And we've done this before. And again, Satan means adversary, but maybe it's twisted. Again, okay, that's not the Draco that we're looking for. There we go. Now, is that a guy you want to take home to mom? How about that guy?
Oh my God.
So, you know, they're depicted with wings, kind of like that. And we see statues of them. Interesting, isn't it? In the Americas and also over in Mesopotamia. They're not really nice, fluffy guys so much.
Ouch. Nice sandals.
And, you know, approximate size there. These are most definitely warriors. So, interesting, is it not? Now, the Nagas are more serpentine, but they're respected. You give them respect because they have wisdom. They can help you. They're not necessarily light and fluffy beings either, but they do have knowledge. They do have wisdom, and they're not really malevolent either, although you tread cautiously around them. And this is according to the Hindu, the Vedic scriptures, as well as other traditions as well, because the Nagas appear in Buddhism. They appear in other, we might say, mythos. And so they live inside the earth still as well. And isn't it interesting? The serpent in the Garden of Eden. See, you hear from Japan and China, you know, they all have these beings. And the thought is these beings were also there on Lemuria before the fall. And you know, there's the Nagas people that say that they descended from these beings that are in India. And isn't that interesting as well? There are the Nagas of India. And these are Nagas of India. And they say they come from these beings. So, or they have blood lineage, blood ties to them. Isn't that curious? It's pretty fascinating stuff when we really look at all this. Now, the Anunnaki, they're all about gold, and isn't it interesting again? There's been so much gold found here out west, right? And especially in Nevada, there's still people paying for gold here all the time. And isn't it interesting? Nevada's 85% owned by the federal government.
They are, and they have been, for quite some time. So, and when I walk along the desert, I do get impressions of underground stuff going on. I kind of picture the vehicles and the lights, the busyness, and the vibration doesn't feel very natural here. It's kind of a sad thing. It feels like Mother Earth is uncomfortable with what's going on, and maybe that's why not too many things grow here. I'm not sure.
And we recognize that Sumerian texts are at least 1,200 to maybe 2,000 years older than any biblical texts. Way, way, way older. And they actually outnumber them like tremendously, thousands to one. There's hundreds of thousands of Sumerian texts. And as I showed you with the Ramayana alone is the size of the Bible. And of course, in the Bible, we just get little blurbs. The Ramayana is just one of the Hindu texts. So again, they are outnumbering the biblical texts hundreds or thousands to one. Just a wealth of knowledge in comparison to these little blurbs that we get. Genesis 6:1, enticed me from the beginning and had to know more. And then you find the book of Enoch, and you get more. But again, the book of Enoch, by the way, is one of the oldest books we actually have. It probably does come from about 200 BC, 100 to 200 BC. And when you look at the actual biblical texts that we have, they're not very old. They really aren't. The actual scriptures are not really old. And so we see here when man began multiplying on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them, that the sons of God, or the sons of the gods, saw the daughters of men, and they were fair, and they took wives of all which they chose. And so here it's talking about them being the followers of Marduk. The Gigi received the name the Watchers, or in their native language, Natiru, from their king named Anu. And this is what King Anu said: those on earth shall as Anunnaki be known, those who from heaven, Mars, Lamu, to earth come. And those who on Lamu, Mars are, Igigi shall be named, those who observe and see, the Watchers. So the Igigi Watchers, Nidaru, produced many offspring on earth and went on to become the pharaohs in Egypt. And they also played a vital role in creating the Aryan civilization by intermarrying earthling females. And so, there's a lot of this that's really interesting. Different beings as well, described as light-skinned or whites, who spoke a very early Proto-European language. The oldest language we have it comes out of Sanskrit. And it's fascinating, again, when we look at all this, what's the real story that we have? So since Mars was no longer habitable, the Gigi came to Earth to live permanently. And supposedly it landed in Antarctica, and there's a mothership there right now where you could actually, if you were allowed to go in there, you could see Vimanas inside them as well. And giants are supposed to, dead giants, and perhaps some giants that are in a stasis of sorts that are to be awakened at some point in time.
Yeah, I could see that happening, putting them in stasis. In fact, I remember, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but I did see a video where it did look like the giants were in stasis. And who knows if it was, it could have been fake, just like everything could have been fake. But you never really know, just like we saw a picture of an autopsy today. And it's super, super easy just to write it off as Hollywood stuff. But maybe they've just convoluted the water so much they expect us to write it off as Hollywood stuff and just something fake.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And ye shall be entertained regularly as in the house. Good to see you. And they have been wakened. Sorry to burst the bubble. I don't doubt that there are many different types of beings that are active and awake right now, some down inside the Earth. I mean, I showed photos of that giant that was supposedly with a military outfit, and he sure did look to be about 10 to 12 feet tall compared to everybody else. And then, of course, we have all these rumors of giants being battled, Anunnaki being battled over in the Mideast as well. Interesting stuff. It's really interesting stuff. Our history has been so hidden from us, and they get us analyzing things like, there's so many people that will analyze the lineage going back to Noah and all that, and then just reference everything to that. In my personal opinion, I think a lot of that is just all to get us off track. It's all to get us studying stuff that keeps us out of the truth and out of piecing together this piece from the ancient Indian texts, this piece from what we get from the Native Americans in North America, this piece from the Australian Aboriginals, this piece over from Africa. That's part of, I think, what's going on here is they want to keep us in tunnel vision. They go and think about who has conquered this world, and whose system dominates. Have you guys ever seen Rammstein's America? I was showing Cindy that. We all live in America. We all live in America. It's that dominant culture, but it's not even so much that it's the American culture. It's the culture and the society that's been given to us by the powers that be. And so, the indigenous people with their beliefs, for the most part, disappear, or it goes way into the background. It's not dominant anymore. The myths, the legends, that are handed down, all that gets lost as one person after another, one culture after another is pretty much eradicated and forced into this mindset, given, this society, which is so consumer driven, for one, all about ego, all about greed and acquiring things and not working together, but competition. It's the culture. It's that Roman Empire that has never ended. It's just morphed, and said this a million times. And I think it comes from Sumeria. I think it comes from these Anunnaki and their offspring that are still here, that are still controlling everything in the same system. The system's never left us. Again, it just morphed into the Roman Empire, morphed into the Catholic Church, morphed into the English Empire, in which the sun never sets, and then morphed into what we have now with the dominance of the U.S.
Yeah, and they put a whole bunch of little churches there and little things to, kind of steer our belief system into a fear-based belief system. So, and the churches are all over the place. I mean, this town is really, really small, but we still have 3. And I mean, why are there so many churches? And even though they say there is only one true God and stuff, but each church says something slightly different, so they contradict each other all the time anyway.
Yeah, and then you must be an atheist if you don't believe in exactly what they believe in. Mm-hmm. But no, I mean, you could believe that there is one source of everything, and there is an underlying unity. So here is where how it works. Okay, so if you don't believe in what I believe in, then you're not believing in the one true God. That's basically what they're saying. And they will name something. And I always go back to the Tao. And in Taoist philosophy, that which can be named is not the Tao. And the Tao is the supreme ultimate. So as soon as you label something, it becomes small and localized. Even if it's large, it's still localized. It's not all. It's not the source. So again, it's a case of taking. We know that there were these beings that were worshipped as gods because of their advanced technology and their advanced, technology knowing how the universe works, to even being able to manipulate their own cells and to be able to change their own wavelength and to be what we call interdimensionals, to be able to shapeshift, things like that. We've seen yogis that can do things like that. Sri Yukteswar appeared to Yogananda like 100 miles away from where his physical body was. So if you watched The Last Jedi, and not to give away that one, Luke appears to be there battling in the end, but he's not even there physically. It's just a mental construct. Well, these yogis in India could actually create a physical body you could touch, hug, and bilocate in that manner. So these beings have abilities like that. So obviously they would appear to be gods, but they're still just beings. They're not, the creator of everything. Although again, they might be the ones that created this version of Homo sapiens sapiens and perhaps altered the earth. Maybe they terraformed the earth from an earth that was really, really suited for reptilian life. Maybe some came along, terraformed it so mammalian life could blossom. And there are those that think right now we're being terraformed back to perhaps accept other types of life or something new.
Yeah, I can see something like that. And if they're that smart and they can, think that far in advance, because, they do manage like big things like worlds and planets, why wouldn't they put together, a system to create a whole bunch of churches to keep everybody fighting with each other about who's right and who's wrong, and then make that the mass system, and then you're an outcast if you question it.
Exactly. And see, I do think we live in a free will universe. So I think that's why we have the chaos. Because, it's basically a free will universe.
Yeah.
That's what we have. And so, I guess me personally, after everything I've read and studied, I do believe what is at the basis of most of the Eastern traditions, in that all of us carry a part of Source in us. We all have that divine spark, but this is a free will universe, and it's governed by the laws of cause and effect. We could call that karma. And, but yet I don't think that everything is completely, I don't believe in predestination. I think we have purpose, and I think a lot of us, I think we all do come in thinking we need to work on this, or we want to help change that. And so we might have a purpose for this life, perhaps one highest purpose. But basically, it is a free will universe, so I don't think anything is set in stone. However, you might know when the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, is ending, and it could be just because of where we are in the universe right now, in our particular little piece of the galaxy that we're going through, where we are getting bombarded with cosmic radiation that's actually perhaps reawakening some DNA that's been dormant for a long time, because when the Anunnaki did their thing with us, perhaps they switched a lot off that was turned on previously, and perhaps it's being switched back on now.
It could be, and I'm a little bit different with you. And when it comes to destiny, I do believe we are born with a destiny, or you could, in theory, call that a purpose. It's something that we feel magnetically drawn to, and certain energies, and I blame it on the planets, because they have certain energies, certain personalities, and depending on where we were born in that snapshot of time and space, that's what we're going to feel magnetically naturally pulled to. And say maybe we set up this destiny before we came here, and fate is just all the little niches and stuff that we kind of fall into on our way to that predetermined state of being.
So, there was a statement about God putting it in the hearts to do perhaps an evil deed or something, and so that's part of the stuff that I absolutely just, to me, it's like, hell no. No way. I don't buy it for a million years. I would never buy it. It just doesn't make any logical sense. So, when we look in Chronicles and Kings, we see King David is given the impulse to go ahead and number the people after he was told not to number the people. So he numbers the people, and then there's a plague, and it kills like 50,000 people. So, in it says God put it in David's heart to number the people after he told David, don't number the people. So that's part of where, to me, it shows that, there's a lot of things to question there. And again, this is not a God with a big G. This is God with a little g. This is one of them. This is one of those beings that, has been behind the scenes now, but they were openly among us. This is one of the Anunnaki. That's what we're talking about here, or perhaps a reptilian. Draco, it's very much a Draco warlike energy there. So yeah, there's no way in the world I'd ever believe that, and it clicked with me from the beginning. That was some of the stuff when I started to really pile through reading Chronicles and Kings and really getting down into it, and then reading Leviticus, which is boring as hell, but it's just all these laws, all these rules, telling you not to do something, but then putting it in your heart to do exactly what you were told not to do, just so that 50,000 people could die in punishment. I don't think that's the benevolent creator of everything. Hell no. That's a dark energy that we have right there.
Yeah, and this is exactly the stuff that drew me to your work, because you are able to go through the Bible, pull out these little facts and put them on a screen and say, hey, people, look at this. This doesn't make sense. And it's true, it doesn't make sense, but you're so well read and you understand this stuff, and you can make these parallels and pick them out, split the hairs that need to be split. You have that ability, and I think that's what frees up people's minds. And by doing that, you could actually save lives, because there's how many people die in the name of this or that with a fundamentalist belief, where in reality, if something were pointed out to you that that just makes absolutely no sense, you could say, hey, well, maybe that's not true, and then you've saved somebody.
Yeah, and I have gotten emails from people that said that at first, I attacked you vehemently, and then things sat in my heart, and then I did some research, and, I want to apologize. So, that has happened before, more than once, and that's a beautiful thing, because it's all about, we got to free up people's minds. We've been completely lied to, and we've been basically given a set of beliefs that are very self-limiting. And, there is only one true source, but it's nothing that would punish people like that.
No.
It's nothing that wants to put evil thoughts in somebody's mind so that innocent could die and then punishment could come. That's very much a slave trader's mentality. Somebody that is viewing people and beings as a resource, perhaps, and a resource that has to be kept in fear. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to see, and we were talking before about, good is dark and dark is good, and how everything has been kind of twisted on such a purpose. So purposely twisted. But again, a lot of people can't shed the fear-based mentality and, that smaller mindset. Again, a full cup has no room for anything new.
That's a very, very good statement. And, hopefully by having this channel and having you guys out here and in the chat, we're waking up people little bits at a time. And I got to tell you, a lot of this stuff really helped unchain my brain so that I don't feel so terrible about myself. Because when I did go to church, I was just like, first off, you're a sinner, just by your mere existence. And then, the things that you might be curious about, you're told that, that's the devil's work and don't go there, and you're evil if you even like it, and don't entertain it, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And, you spend all this time under self-criticism and self-doubt. It's like a totally narcissistic relationship that over time can cause, PTSD. It's what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know right now, but anyways, you guys know what I mean.
Exactly. So this gets into the arch negative thing as well. Higher IQ than most, lower body temperature than average, higher blood pressure than average, red blonde or reddish blonde hair, extra vertebrae in the tailbone, highly sensitive nervous system, strong intuition, psychic abilities, blue or green eyes, thyroid issues, feeling different than others but don't know why. So it's all interesting. And again, when they talk about fallen angels, why don't we say fallen messengers? Because that's what angel means. It's a messenger, and everything has really gotten very, very twisted, as we have said. Meet the Igigi, the ancient astronauts who rebelled against the Anunnaki. And again, the thought is they were the ones on Mars, and the survivors came here and intermingled. And so, when you look at it, we are like a melting pot. And, at the same time, when you read some of the biblical texts, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Okay, well, that tells you there's multiple gods right there. Mm-hmm. You shall have no other gods before me. How else can you read that? There's multiple gods. And there's another one where it says you should not worship alien gods. The direct translation is alien gods. It's just so obvious. Deuteronomy 32:8 I've told you about before too. And it's the exact same picture we get of the Greco-Roman gods, basically holding a high council. All of them sitting at the table. And so, again, this is one singular entity. It's not the source of all creation, but that's basically what we have. But then at the same time, there are references to source as well, but that's all been basically obliterated and twisted and tangled, So it's a tangled mess, but that is done purposefully, completely. And, as Hard Truth says, that's because the aliens are the gods. Yeah, and we have, we have their blood in us too, and maybe some are a different mix as well. Oh, Rosemary says it's turned dark there because too much smoke. Be safe, Rosemary. I guess it doesn't seem like the fires are really letting up, and I know you guys in Australia are going through a tremendous heat wave as well. Our prayers and best wishes for you guys over there, our EEA family over in Australia, everyone over in Australia.
Yeah, Rosemary, I'm so sorry. I hope the horses are okay, and I hope you're going to be okay. And I think we just need to send a whole lot of energy to Rosemary and to Australia, and hopefully get this cleared up. I'm really worried about those critters, Rosemary, and you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Rosemary says it's chaos here, or absolute mayhem. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to talk with you, and we could talk about it on a different show too, whenever you get a chance. And Rosemary's just a resource, a tremendous resource of natural health, just knowledge. She's wonderful. She's a lady with a beautiful heart and an amazing mind as well.
She is. Rosemary's done some really, really great work for me, and I do appreciate it so much. And I'm just sending out a ton of love and a ton of prayers to you to give you energy and strength to keep on keeping on, Rosemary. I just can't imagine what it's like out there. I'm so sorry.
So yeah, according to mainstream scholars, the Igigi were the younger servants of the Anunnaki, who initiated a rebellion against their masters and the dictatorship of Enlil. However, the Anunnaki replaced the Igigi with humans. So now maybe, and this is one of the things that hits me, I think there's a lot, I do feel like there's some lies there. And one of them is that I don't, it doesn't click to me that they made us out of perhaps Homo erectus or Homo habilis. My gut is that whatever they did to us, it basically caused us to lose a lot of our abilities. I don't think it was a gain. I think it was a loss. That's what my gut tells me. They manipulated our DNA, so much of our quote-unquote junk DNA is offline, but it's coming online now. So, that's really what I feel is the truth deep down inside. Because, I do think if you're going to make a slave, you got to make them just intelligent enough to, handle the workload, but you also want to cut them off, especially to if they had interdimensional abilities, multidimensional abilities. If we could have done in those days things like we see some of the yogis doing, by location, as well as many other miracles as well. When you see the miracles of Christ, you could find the same miracles done by many other people, especially, the Indian yogis. There are so many of them that did all those miracles. And we hear those legends too with Mithras and Dionysus and others, these other beings that could still do those type of miracles. Those are the siddhis. Those are the superpowers that you get at higher levels of understanding and meditation. So perhaps, we were actually dumbed down instead of upgraded.
Yeah, not only dumbed down, but, well, yeah, I guess hidden. That's the same thing. A lot of our abilities are hidden from us. And what if, they knew that our abilities were going to come online and people were going to have certain symptoms, and this was already pre-known, and say they make all these commercials about all these symptoms, which are really our DNA waking up or ascension symptoms, and they say, well, we have a pill for that, just like we have an app for that, except they have a pill, but we have to go to this doctor and get a special note from our doctor and then go get this pill filled, and then that squashes our abilities. It messes with our energy intake, and that's just the whole medical system taking over our abilities. If they knew all these things in advance could happen, it makes sense that they would set up the medical system to net a lot of people who would otherwise, if they knew exactly what was happening, they wouldn't have so many problems with their body, with their brains, and stuff like that.
Agreed. So when we look at this, right? So the Ijiji come here. So perhaps, maybe those are the ones that have, been running this. Maybe those are the families of the Illuminati when we basically break it down. As many people think that is the case. And so, maybe when we look at the gods versus the Titans, we're looking at the Ijiji versus the Anunnaki. I always find it all fascinating to look at all these things. So many questions, and of course the cover-up is always ongoing.
It is ongoing, and that's one thing that happened to me. Brains, yeah, is trying to, yeah, absolutely, yeah. That's one of the things that happened to me because I have these super powerful emotions, and I didn't know what to do with them until I met Michael, and now I know that they like emotions are things. They can be used for healing, and I've done some pretty interesting stuff with them, but I didn't know until I ran into Michael. I didn't know how to use them. I didn't know how to channel them, and granted, I still have problems, but the system still got a hold of me, and they did significant damage. I gotta admit, luckily I've been able to get out from underneath a lot of the medications that they put me on, but I'm pretty sure that there's certain things that are going to be a little more difficult to undo than others. But luckily with our brain's plasticity, anything can be undone. It's just going to take a little while.
Yeah, so I just want to share this with you guys. Rosemary just sent this. This is what the sky looks like where she is in Australia. Looks pretty ominous. I'm sure it's not good on the lungs. Again, you have all of our prayers and best wishes, and we love you, and we thank you for everything that you've done for us and so many. So stay safe, our dear sister.
Yes, Rosemary is sending you a ton of love and compassion and strength, and holding energy for you, because I could imagine this is a lot of worry that's taken its toll on you.
And so, looking at you guys' comments in there, here's what it gets me thinking. Okay, so if, these Ijiji that come from Mars, are here, and, we were created to be a slave race by the Anunnaki to take the brunt of the weight of it off of them, perhaps we were dumbed down instead of, given an upgrade. Now, if they know that somebody's coming back, and maybe it's the beings that we know as the devas, the more benevolent ones, and they know, like I was saying, that Amarta is on the way, help is coming, and also we're going through the ascension process as well, and we have to wake up. Maybe there's this scorched earth, maybe they have this program in place that's like scorched earth, and they know their time is limited, right? Satan's time is limited, that whole thing. So he's cast down upon the earth, the Gigi cast down upon the earth, or the Anunnaki, however you want to view it. And, these are all just terms. But anyway, there's beings, obviously, that are not so benevolent, that have been running our world and our society. And so if they know the other guys are coming back, maybe there's like, well, we're going to take them with us. That policy, we've seen war, that policy where you raise a city or a town so there's nothing left that's usable, and you just wipe the whole thing out.
Yeah, it's exactly like an extremely abusive relationship, where the most dangerous part is at the end, when the person starts to realize they are being manipulated, they are being abused, and they're like, okay, I'm out of here. At that point, there's nothing to lose. They just, wipe them out. They don't give a crap because, well, why should they? They're going to lose everything anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And so, these sources, these are, again, 1,200 to 2,000 years older than anything biblical. And it basically, it comes right out there. It says that when the gods like men bore the work and suffering of the toil of the gods was great. The work was heavy. The distress was much. The 7 great Anunnaki were making the Igigi suffer the work. When the gods, manlike, bore the labor, carried the load, the gods' load was great. The toil grievous, the trouble excessive. The great Anunnaki, the 7, were making the Igigi undertake the toil. And, then, of course... And we see all these depictions of it. We also see some where it shows humans much smaller than the other beings in the picture. Basically, just like what we saw happen to Africans taken over to North America and all throughout the Caribbean and some of South America as well, and used as slaves. They're tied together at the neck, and chain gangs. The same things we see. So, who did we learn all these negative habits from? Perhaps that's it. And right here, Martians and Earthlings, violent, commercial, tactical, slave trade history. So this is interesting. Roosevelt, before the staged panic, wanted the public to know ET presence here. In 1936, President Roosevelt told his cabinet, "There are other planets in our solar system inhabited by people much like us. I have been personally visited by one of these intelligent aliens. I feel we must tell the public." And then Leith wrote that a very disturbed Roosevelt had hastily called his cabinet together. The president was adamant that the American people must be told. The cabinet chose a committee to introduce the ETs with a radio drama. The way people reacted to the drama would show Roosevelt what he could expect if he followed his impulse to disclose the ETs. The committee chose Orson Welles to adapt H.G. Wells's War of the Worlds to a radio drama of Martians invading Earth. Roosevelt's men asked Welles to make the drama as scary as possible. In 1938, at 8 p.m., listeners to the Mercury Theater Hour heard what sounded like a newscast of Martians landing in New Jersey. 8 New Yorkers leaped to deaths from tall buildings. New Yorkers jammed roads, bridges, and tunnels out of the city as they tried to escape to the countryside. Roosevelt decided on the basis of these reactions to reverse his call for disclosure. Acting solely on the basis of this radio drama, the executive branch decided the American public should not be told that we were being scrutinized by a race from outer planets with technological advances far beyond that of Earth. And in reality, Earth has been visited, colonized, and invaded. Now this says by Lyran humans from Mars several times, and Earthlings have been traveling to Mars for many millennia. And so interesting stuff as well.
It is interesting. And again, I wish that they would put this in some sort of mainstream literature. And, even if you can homeschool your child, you're still going to be given the same information as they would put in a public school. But the beauty of homeschooling, if you can, at least you're sitting right there to tell your child, look, they told me this in high school and they're telling you this now. So be open-minded enough to know later that the truth can change, because I think a lot of people take a lot of pride in their education. So when their education is messed with because they put so much effort into it, and, rightfully so, it's hard. It's a hard blow to the ego to be told, look, everything that you spent all your time, blood, sweat, and tears learning is wrong. I hate to tell you this, but it's all wrong. And that doesn't go over well with people, and naturally, and I think that's all done by design too.
Yeah, it's just all fascinating stuff. I got the links for you guys as always. And there's the case of this boy who says he reincarnated from Mars and talked about giants there, like 7 meters tall. And there's been more than this one occurrence of people having remembrances of either Atlantis or Lemuria coming out in hypnosis sessions and past life regressions. Pretty fascinating. And so in this case, there's this boy that, talked all about it. And so the little boy with gigantic, lively eyes was about to tell a magnificent story about the Martian civilization, about megalithic cities, their spaceships, flights to various planets, about a wonderful country, Lemuria, life of which he knew in detail since he happened to descend there from Mars and had friends there. Interesting stuff. Not typical of a typical 7-year-old to make all this stuff up. And, would he be able at 7 to read books and stuff of this sort? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe he's exceptional. Or maybe he really does have these remembrances of this past life. And so, it's interesting. Gets into giants, gets into everything going on. Lemurians being 9 meters tall. That's pretty interesting. But then again, he's not the only one that said that. There's other sources that have talked about that as well. So I hope we will know at some point in the future, and maybe not too far distant future as well.
I think a beautiful world would be if they took these teachings and taught them at mainstream, and kind of took out all of what we consider to be our true history and replaced it with true history. I think that would be a beautiful world. I think something called truth would be the most freeing feeling for so many people. Then we would just know that we know that we know we were right all along, because we live under this veil of uncertainty. We're just not quite sure. We're pretty sure what we're being told is crap, but at the same time, we don't have the evidence. And it's just sort of a sucky thing to be under constantly. It's like, that something doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, it's usually not true. So yeah, I would love to see some truth, some beautiful, beautiful truth. That's the world I want to live in.
Most definitely. So guys, I want to thank you for joining us once again. Please do make sure that you are subscribed to the second channel, EE Arts. Come join us on our Patreon as well, where you can see some videos that don't go up on YouTube and support the channel, and also on Ko-Fi. And just so you know, Vedic astrology chart readings are available, and Cindy's been busy with those. People have been coming out of the woodwork with those, and to great results as well, is what the feedback is coming back from. So we look forward to doing this all again in the future. Much love, my friends. Always keep an open mind. Be ready. Be prepared for anything that might come our way. God bless and namaste, guys.
God bless and namaste.